Hi guys, welcome back to this channel. My name is Alex. I'm an architect based in London and I make videos on architecture. And in today's video, I thought I'll go back to the basics and explore what it means to design building from scratch. In order to create a great design, we must follow a clear process. Unfortunately, architectural education is plagued by ambiguity, and my goal in today's video is to try to clear away some of that ambiguity by showing how I would approach designing a simple residential house. Now, architectural design process doesn't have to follow strict guidelines and everybody is free to adapt it to suit their own needs. The design process I follow did help me when I was in School of Architecture to come up with the ideas quickly and iterate quickly, which in turn did help me to produce designs a bit more efficiently. Now, in today's video, we'll be looking at several design stages through a simple residential project. Now, first of all, architectural design is about two things, I think: the purpose and the process. So let's look at the purpose first. According to Roman architect Vitruvius, architecture is about three things: firmitas, utilitas, and venustas. And these are the three things that define a good architecture according to him. And I think that this is not a universal definition of what architecture means, but I think it's a good starting point to kind of wrap our heads around what it means to design a good architecture. Utilitas is all about designing spaces that are fit for purpose, that can accommodate. Firmitas is about making architecture durable and robust, so that it can withstand the climate that it's built in, and also different functions that take place within, variety of activities that they're supposed to host. And lastly, venustas is about making a coherent atmosphere. In other words, it's about look and feel of the space, and that's the most interesting part for architects. Okay, so now that we have established what it means to design great architecture, let's look at the process of actually designing it. And I think design process consists of three things that I like to call a design cycle. And design cycle is about 1, research; 2, it's about proposal; and 3, it's about reflection. Now, in the research stage, you're basically trying to gather as much information as possible that's relevant to your design project. In the proposal stage, you're taking that information and you're trying to synthesize it into something that's going to be useful for your design project as well. And then finally, in the reflection stage, what you look at that proposal that you just created and see if that meets the kind of requirements and what you want from the project. Okay, so now that we have looked at what it means to have a great architecture and the process of design, let's apply it to the actual project. Now, I'm going to be using several design cycle processes one after another, and the reason for that is because if you have several iterations of design cycle, you can actually go back and see why you made certain decisions and why you've omitted others. Okay, so the first design cycle will be about the brief and the site. The client for this project will be a young family with a small child who wants to build their own house. They like the idea of living in a small town because living in a city is a bit too much for them. This family wants to spend as much quality time together as possible, but they also would like to have an ability to be apart when necessary, for work or recreation. The other thing we need to have a look at is the site analysis. So for that, we'll look at this map. For some context, the site is located here. I'm gonna make that red outline so it's clear. So this town will be based in Scotland somewhere. Take it as an imaginary town. You can see here that it has a high street, and then it has kind of secondary street that kind of connects to the high street over here. It then has these secondary streets or lanes that happen to pass the site. So we can put a little key here to kind of indicate that as well. The other thing that we can have a look is the urban fabric. That's the original town grain. And then we can also note the suburban developments, perhaps in blue. Actually missed these. Should be part of the original fabric as well. And then lastly, we can also add some of the more modern developments, such as these big buildings here, which will be shopping centers, and other buildings like warehouses and other buildings that were built in kind of middle of the 20th century. And the reason for doing that is basically so that we can kind of understand what the build-up, what the make of the town around us is. The other thing we can note as well on these is the height of the building. So So we'll say that some buildings are 1-story height, a majority of buildings is 2-story height, then some buildings are also 3 stories high. Just gonna help us to, if we were to do it for real, in the real world, to convince the local authority, the planning department, that this development is suitable. We can also note the sun path, so you'll get morning light from here and evening light from this direction. As well as we can note wind, which in this instance the prevailing wind probably would be from this direction since it's in Scotland. Now immediately what we can see here is that this site offers a number of opportunities, one of which is that it's a corner site, so we can do something about expressing the corner of the site. We can also fill in the missing part of the urban fabric, because in this case it kind of nicely completes the block, which currently is empty. The constraints would be that the site is quite tight, so because it's quite a constrained site, we'll have to be quite clever about how we set out the spaces within. So what kind of things can we take from this site analysis that we did that we can implement in our proposals? Let's have a look. So this is kind of the street view of the site. The site would be located over here. I think it's safe to say that we could get away with at least 2-story height, which would allow us to maximize the site as well. We can observe that the palette is quite rich in this case. So we have a variety of materials around, one of which is the stone. We can also see that some of the fences around are made from brick, so that's another material that we can potentially consider. And lastly, also most of these roofs in these Scottish towns have slate roofs, so that's something we could potentially consider as well. And then we also can jot down on some of our observations that immediately come to our mind. Now, one of them can be that the site is quite cozy, it's quite a small site. It doesn't promote a sense of stillness, like in this particular street, there's no places to rest or kind of stop. So there's a sense of movement that exists in the site. And then looking at the site in a bit more detail, we can see that the plan here is quite deep, so perhaps filling it with the building would not necessarily be the most appropriate thing to do, because by the time we get here we're not going to be able to see any windows, because we have the adjacent building to the east of the site, and to the south of the site we have the boundary wall. So one way we can kind of mitigate that is by having a little allocation of what can possibly be a private garden. We also have this kind of busy street over here, but less busy street on this side. So then we can kind of note down our observations about privacy, garden, that it can be provided due to the deep plan, that the building can be 2 stories, materials can be borrowed from around, and we can also express the corner. So at this point it's hard to say what the next step should be without further developing our design, but I think the questions to ask on this reflection stage after the design cycle 1 is whether the height of 2 stories is appropriate, or can we push maybe further? Is the material palette appropriate? Should we introduce new materials, or should we stick with the traditional materials? And on the same note, should we go for the more traditional appearance of this building because it's in a corner and completes the historic block? Or perhaps we should be a bit more innovative with our design and propose something a bit more modern. So in the second design cycle, what we're gonna do is we develop the concept a bit further. If in the beginning we looked at the site, now we're gonna look at the actual building. So for the building itself, what we want to do first is we want to establish what's called a program, which is basically a schedule of all the accommodation that's going to go within the building. So we know definitely that we would like to have a kitchen and a living room in our flat. Let's say that both of them will be roughly 36 square meters. We also probably want some kind of bathroom. We also want to have 1 bedroom for the parents, 1 bedroom for the child, and an office space in this building. And I think it also would be nice to have an ensuite bathroom for the parents' bedroom, and generally second bathroom for the use of the entire house. Oftentimes there is a little bit of back and forth with the room sizes, so initially you don't have to be that precise or accurate about having the exact size of the room. That's going to become clear later in the design process. So that's the program of the building. At this point also would be useful to know what would be the construction of the building. Start considering different options, like would it be concrete, timber frame, steel? I think for the purposes of this site, the most suitable material would be either timber or steel, because it's quite a public site and there is not much much room around it, so the building construction process should be as quick as possible. Okay, cool. So now that we've done our research into what the spaces should be, we can now finally look into the developing concept for the spaces. And there's a couple of things we need to do at this stage. One, we need to develop our concept diagram or partie diagram, which is basically a very simple illustration what your building is all about. In our case, it's important to focus on the site because the site is so constrained that it's really going to be the driver of our design. And from this diagram as well, what's quite apparent is that there's this void versus solid concept that starts to trickle through, which means that, you know, one part of the building is solid and the other bit is kind of taking out of it, which is quite interesting because a bigger theme from this can be a theme of contrast. And we can use this theme of contrast to sort of explain how building sits on the site as well, because as you remember, these two axes here are quite public. So it's this kind of friction between the public spaces that within the proximity of the building are tying quite neatly this building together in terms of the design. So again, we can just kind of mark the hard edge as a thicker line. So this in a nutshell can be our working diagram for the building. The theme of contrast, solid and void, and this kind of friction between the public and private spaces within. So the other thing we can also quickly look from developing our bubble diagram is the sequence of arrival, which I think is quite important in this case to define that early on in the process. So what does the arrival sequence mean? Well, it's just basically spaces that are put next to one another and how people move through them. So first of all, we need to define where is the space, where's the external space. And the external space in this case would obviously be the street, the public space. It would be pretty weird to move straight into the building, into the bedroom. So we need to kind of put some thresholds in between the street and how we move into the core, into the most private spaces of the building. So threshold would be the logical step, literally and figuratively, before then arriving into the living/kitchen. And the kitchen and the living room can be expressed as a prominent space within the building because it is quite important. And then from the kitchen and the living room, we can then move into the either garden space or have a connection to bedrooms and the office, which both are quite private. So you can see how this kind of sequence diagram starts to develop, which means that kind of automatically in the section we can start allocating the spaces as well on the ground floor, for example, with this threshold from the public into the private space, not the private space but the living room and the kitchen. That would be kind of one zone of the house on the ground floor, and it would make sense to put bedrooms upstairs as that is the most private part. And you know, we can also, because this is kind of our sketchbook that we're working on, we can just note for ourselves that the preferred method of construction would be timber frame. So that we can kind of remember like what our design thinking was up to this point. So at the reflection stage at this point, what we can have a think about is whether the amount of spaces that we have provided is appropriate. Does the site feel too tight? Can we fit everything into the given space, or do we need more room? And if we do need more room, are there any bits that we can cut out from our design proposal? Okay, so now that we have looked at the site in general and the program within the building, it's time to put things on a paper. And that leads us to the third design cycle, which is develop design. For the first stage of the design cycle number 3, the research stage, we can just simply review what we gathered so far, what information we have up to this date that's available to us, i.e. the bubble diagram, the information about the site, the client information. All those things are now really handy for us to use to be able to put things on a plan, to kind of transition from the diagrammatic conceptual stage to kind of more practical stage and putting things on the paper. Okay, so for this step we're going to use our site plan and we're going to start to put the bubble diagram onto it. So first of all, I'm going to choose the way that the building is going to be entered into, and I'll choose it to be from this street. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that, we can change it later on, but as a first step I'd like to have it here, which would lead us to our threshold space, and this threshold space could be simply a lobby of the house. The other thing that we know from our previous passes is that we also want to have a garden at the back, perhaps with a tree to just make it kind of feel nicer by introducing the greenery. We might also want to have some kind of access to the back by stepping the plot a little bit, just because it's a bit more practical. And then finally we can kind of plot in our living room/kitchen. In fact, the kitchen itself is a utilitarian space, and it feels like it might be in the corner because we kind of want to have the living room a bit more secluded, and so it makes sense perhaps to put the kitchen in the corner of the building, and then the living room can kind of follow on at the end here. So the living room goes here and the kitchen goes here in the corner. And we also want a bathroom on the ground floor. It kind of makes sense because, you know, if you're in need, you want to be able to reach the bathroom from your kitchen without having to go upstairs. So let's put that in somewhere here as well. The bathroom doesn't need much light and it can be kind of tucked away further in the plan. So here we don't have any windows. It kind of makes sense to put it there. So in a similar fashion for the first floor, we want to plot our garden space and the accommodation upstairs. And so now that we have this bubble diagram on the plan starting point, we can then start plotting the actual spaces on the plan by introducing the actual thicknesses of the wall, the kind of relative recesses. So I think for this threshold space, the entrance would be from the side here, so it's not kind of directly from the outside in. You have to actually turn the corner to get in. It's a nice device to stop people to kind of directly looking into the house in the first place. It would be nice to have some kind of glazed facade here, perhaps a bathroom / storage space provision in this location, maybe with a bathroom and the sink and all the things that need to go in there. The stair upstairs might be somewhere here, which would also be separating device from that lobby space into the living room. Kitchen could be placed somewhere here with its worktops, with the dining table, perhaps a couch and a TV in this end. And I think with this there's several passes to make this building look really nice and appealing. The key, I suppose, is going back and revisiting like why you've done certain things you've done during the first design cycles, but then also looking at the Vitruvian principles. You know, is this building actually functional in terms of the use of these spaces? Is there enough allocation for the kitchen, for the living room, for the bedrooms? Is the building robust enough? I think with our timber frame construction, it certainly would be, because timber is a durable material. And lastly, it's all about the looks and feel of the space. Is the palette of the materials that we've chosen, is that the right kind of material palette that we want to be using? You know, you can keep going into these design cycles and revisit or reiterate different themes that we've explored. Drawing a bunch of options and continually iterating upon your design is the surest way to get to the good design. And I actually made this other video that I will link up somewhere here that talks about how to draw like a pro architect. So please check that out and let me know what you think.